Baltimore City State's attorney has long said that mandatory minimums do not work in the fight against crime. But just this week, Marilyn Mosby renewed her support for a federal program that does just that, taking many of her cases and imposing the strictest penalties possible.
All right, good morning.
Together they form a partnership as gun violence in Baltimore hits a record pace once again.
All of us standing here today find that the levels of gun violence in Baltimore totally unacceptable.
Levels they hope will decrease by targeting and putting away those pulling the trigger through an expansion of Project Exile.
The main thrust of our strategy is stronger criminal enforcement.
Project Exile has been around in Baltimore for the better part of a decade. The initiative steers gun cases from state to federal court, where penalties are usually stiffer and there's no parole.
The message is simple. If violent crime is the life you choose, we will be certain that prison will be the price you pay.
In 2020, 73 gun possession cases were charged under Project Exile, the most since its inception in Baltimore. But its impact on violent crime has yet to show much progress, unlike what other cities saw when Exile was first created. Back in the 90s, Richmond, Virginia was the success story.
You find any criminal in Richmond, anybody arrested in Richmond, anybody selling drugs on the corner, you ask them what Exile is, they'll tell you that, man, that means 5 years in prison, man. I ain't carrying a piece.
Fox 45 News traveled to Richmond, and we found within the project's first year, Richmond's homicide rate declined by more than 30%, catching the attention of leaders in Maryland.
Why not take something that's worked in another city and use it here?
That was then Congressman Bob Ehrlich in 1999, a statement he stands by today.
It sends a message to the worst of the worst. Don't carry a gun.
This is a Cobra Tech 9.
Ehrlich was pivotal in pushing for Project Exile to be adopted in Baltimore and believes it can still work to reduce crime.
Exile was about exceptions, exceptional cases, exceptionally violent cases. So when you have a city literally out of control, as we see now, week after week, month after month, year after year, going back to my time in the Maryland General Assembly, you got to try something different. And in my humble opinion, Exile should be on the front burner.
Our message is clear that all of us here together.
And while this week's expansion of the program seems to show it is a priority, not every gun case can be sent to federal court.
I certainly think Baltimore has struggled to hold gun offenders accountable in state court.
Jason Johnson is an Operation Crime and Justice contributor. He says for years, Marilyn Mosby's office has favored plea deals in favor of stiff sentences, making him skeptical of Mosby's support of Project Exile.
She and other city leaders have been on the record over and over and over against any form of mandatory minimum. And this certainly is a mandatory minimum.
So we took that question to her ourselves.
Project Exile has been known across the country as something that has brought stiffer sentences and put people away for a very long time. Do you still support that program?
So what I've been very clear about is that there's a distinction between violent crime and those lesser included crimes, right? Like lesser offenses that have nothing to do with public safety.
But with the safety of the people of Baltimore still in jeopardy, it's the hope Project Exile will step in when the state won't. We requested data this week from Marilyn Mosby's office regarding how many gun cases she's prosecuted in the past year compared to how many have been sent to the Project Exile program. So far, her office has refused to provide that public information. Dan Lamparello, Fox 45 News.